thing that there's a lot of videos out now, and I don't know if these people get these videos, but I get them. I get these videos of horrible war encounters.
Yes.
In Russia and Ukraine. It's horrendous. And it brings me to this thing that I think about a lot, because I think about things that other people do for a living and their jobs, and I think about, like, they live in a world that I don't understand. You know, there's like I'm fascinated by professional chess players. They live in a world that I don't understand because I don't play chess. I love the fact I kind of know how the pieces move, but I've really only played like maybe 10 times my whole life.
Yeah.
There's a thing that people have. It's a quality of being a human being. You only know what you know. And other things become like these sort of like ethereal narratives. They're not necessarily real. And war is one of them.
Yes.
War is one of them. There's a thing that people, the way my friends who've served talk about war is so titanically different than the way people who ideologically support or disavow it. Like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about if you say there's no need for a military. You're crazy. We are going to get subjugated. Someone will come here with men with guns. If you take away all the guns that everybody has and no more military, we're fucked. And if you don't think that, it's because if you'd never gone to the dark parts of the world, or you've never gone on Telegram. I'll send you some videos. I saw a guy get killed with a hammer yesterday.
Jesus.
This is so important for people to understand, which is that we are 75 years removed from what war on the European continent actually looks like. And, you know, Joe, I'm the same way. I've been on fucking Live Leak, you know, since I was like 12, which is probably bad for you. But,
terrible for you.
Terrible for you.
Terrible for you.
My girlfriend's like, what are you watching? I'm like, what? And she's like a beheading or something like that.
My wife will come into my office and I have to pause videos. And I'm like, you really want to see this? You really
they always say
know
yes,
what I'm watching?
but then they can't handle it.
I can't handle it. I can't handle it.
Yeah,
I don't do well with blood.
The point, though, is that, you know, we have to try and convey this to people and just say, like, hey, when you're on Twitter and you're like, hey, you know, fuck you, you know, anybody who's against an narrative, you're like, this is not a joke. Like, hundreds of thousands of Russians are dead. Hundreds of thousands are Ukrainians are dead. Millions are displaced. We have no idea what the end game is like. And, you know, just what Krystal was saying, I have this thing where, you know, the Fight Club line, like on a long enough timeline. I mean, like, on a long enough timeline, Ukraine is getting everything that it wanted. So originally it was like no-fly zone, and Biden was like, I'm being responsible. I'm saying no. Well, first they ruled out Patriot missile systems. Patriot missile systems are now on the way to Ukraine. They ruled out tanks. Now tanks are on the way to Ukraine. Right now, there's an article talking about how F-16s, they're thinking about sending Pentagon F-16s. Biden says no now.
Right, exactly.
We'll see.
But he was saying no to tanks.
Right.
Like 5 days before they sent tanks.
And here's the thing.
He doesn't remember that, though.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, you're right.
Right.
And
Like,
you gotta dig deep too. Like, for example, originally we're like, we just want Ukraine to take back what it originally lost. And listen, if I was Ukrainian, I'd be pushing for the same thing.
Absolutely.
I have 100% sympathy. They are not in the wrong here. They've been invaded by a foreign and aggressive power. That said, like, we got to think about what's best for us. Right now, there's a New York Times article about U.S. warms to helping Ukraine take back Crimea. I'm like, well, hold on a fucking second. I'm not saying it's just that Russia took Crimea in 2013, but they formally annexed it. And if you ask people in Russia, Crimea is Russia. So if Ukraine uses a Pentagon-provided F-16 to bomb Crimea, now what? Like, now, that's a violation of Russian nuclear doctrine. They've updated their nuclear doctrine, by the way, to not even say it's defensive. They can say they can use it in any capacity that Vladimir Putin wants to. That was a significant change.
Yes.
If you look in the history of the way that the great superpowers actually consider their own nuclear first strike use. It's something that is considered ironclad, and then, boom, it changes like that. You're not even going to hear about this.
And I was heartened a while back when there were some leaks that came out of the Biden administration that he, at like a donor event in San Francisco or something, said basically like, we got to make sure we avoid World War III. I'm paraphrasing, but that was he was like, we got to avoid nuclear war. We got to avoid World War III. And I was like, okay, good. He's thinking about that. That caution that existed at that point seems to be totally out of the window. And if you read, the official sort of like state paper, the New York Times, about the administration's thinking, they're like, well, Russia said this nuclear stuff and it didn't happen, so they must just be bluffing. It must just not be real.
Jesus.
And it's like, okay, number one.
Was there a timeline before they could press the button?
Exactly.
Yeah,
And, they didn't blow up the whole world yet, so we should be fine.
We're fine.
I mean, that's insane, number one. And number two, The idea that Russia hasn't escalated in response to our actions is just not true. They've been striking critical energy infrastructure, including, in and around Kyiv, which was an escalation. They went through with conscription that was very politically dicey for Putin. There's rumors that they may go through with another draft. So the idea that they just took all of this lying down, didn't escalate, is a fantasy to start with. But it's incredibly dangerous and foolish to think just because they didn't push the nuclear button yet that, it's all fine and he's just full of it.
Thank God there's people like you guys out there, because there's so many people that they have Ukraine in the same category of importance and significance as they do climate change.